What's good? What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Tony Bruce TV. I'm your host, Tony Bruce, and today we're going to have a brief discussion on my top 3 tips to help you when you're recording in the studio right after the intro. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we back. I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of Tony Bruce TV. I'm your host, Tony Bruce. Don't forget, if you like the content we release on this channel, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and punch that notification bell so you can get all the content we release. I drop videos twice a week. If you feel like this content can help anybody in your circle, make sure you share that with them. If you have any tips that can go along with any one of these topics, make sure you leave that in the comment section also. Any advice, any good advice or good tips are very helpful to the community. I'm your host, Tony Bruce. You can connect with me on Instagram and YouTube at Tony Bruce TV, and I'm on Facebook at Tony Bruce Music. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get into today's topic, which is my top 3 tips to help you for when you're recording in the studio. Now, my tip number 1, and this right here is, I guess it can kind of be self-explanatory, but some people really don't think about it when they go into the studio. But my number 1 tip for when you're recording in the studio is don't wear your jewelry. Definitely your necklaces and your bracelets, do not wear your jewelry when you're laying down your vocals in the booth. Those good condenser mics, especially if you have a real good one, they're going to pick up all of the noise and the jewelry shaking and the chains rattling. It's going to pick up all of that along with your vocals when you're laying your vocals. Now, I understand that wanting to, you want to wear your ice and the photo shoots at the studio. That's fine. But after you're done with your pictures, done with your photo ops, your IG, whatever the case may be, your lives, take your jewelry off before you start recording your verses. This is going to make sure that your sound quality is going to be, much better and eliminate all of the unnecessary sounds when you're laying down your vocals for your songs. So that's my number 1 tip when it comes to recording in the studio is don't wear your jewelry. All right, my tip number 2 is I recommend that you, take you something to drink, a bottle of water, juice, or soda. My personal recommendation is just take you some water, because when you're in the booth and you're constantly recording, laying down vocals, laying down your chorus, ad-libs, your throat is going to get dry from constantly using your vocal cords. And you're going to get dehydrated a little while you're in the booth. So you want to stay hydrated so you can perform at optimal levels. And definitely, if you're one of those people who like to, chief a little something or drink a little bit before you go into the studio, you definitely want to drink you some water to make sure that you're hydrated and you're not dry, you're not low on energy. The water's going to help you with your energy also, your energy levels. So you want to make sure that you take you something to drink. You may want to take some juice, some soda, but like I said, I recommend taking regular old water, preferably if the water is room temperature and not cold water, but that's my preference. But take you some water or something to drink when you go into the booth to help yourself from, help you from not getting hydrated, so you can perform at optimal levels and your throat and your vocal cords won't get worn out as fast. So that's my second tip in how to record better vocals in the studio, or second tip for going to the studio to record, is to take you something to drink so you don't get hydrated. And tip number 3, and this is a real good tip. This probably should have been number 1, but we're gonna throw it in number 3, and that's to always rehearse your songs before you go to the studio. And rehearsing your songs don't mean you have to rehearse them in front of people. You can rehearse them to yourself, just constantly, going over your lines. You want to write your songs and rewrite your songs. So when I say write your songs and rewrite your songs, what I mean is when you go through your songs, actually read your lines and see if maybe you can maybe edit a word, or maybe it's some syllable or something you may need to switch up so you can deliver it better. So those are the things you want to look for when you're going back to rewrite your songs or edit your songs. So sometimes, when I'm writing songs, initially, I write it down on paper if I'm not around my computer to type my lyrics. So I write it down, I read it, and I go type it. And as I'm typing it, I always go in, especially before I'm about to go to the studio, that week prior or sometimes 2 weeks prior, I go in and I look at the words and, I kind of rap the song to myself a few times. And then as I'm rapping the song, I'm paying attention to breathing spots. I'm paying attention to certain spots of the song to where maybe I need to say a different word, cut down on some of the syllables so the delivery can go better, or maybe just for the sake of me, like I said, getting a breathing spot to where I can add that little extra emphasis on a particular word or a particular sentence. So this will get you, by doing this, by re-editing your songs, writing your songs over, rehearsing them to yourself, and making sure that everything as at the highest quality that you can make it. This will get you more familiar with the song also, and in most cases you'll come up with better ways to make your future songs better. Also, by practicing before you go into the studio, you can get more from your studio session by either recording more songs or giving the engineer more time to mix, because the song is pretty much second nature to you at that point. You've already written it a few times, you've already rehearsed it several times. So it's almost like, at that point, most times you've already memorized the song. So you can kind of go through it much faster. So when you book your studio time, it don't take you long at all to lay your vocals. And you want to leave most of the time for your engineer to have time to work on your vocals and mixing everything, leveling everything out, mastering, all of that good stuff. So that's my third tip, which in my opinion is probably the most important. Third tip when it comes to recording in the studio, that's to always rehearse, rewrite, and re-edit your songs like a week or two prior to you going into the studio and rehearsing. So we're going to go over those 3 tips one more time as a quick recap. And the first tip is don't wear jewelry whenever you're going into the booth to lay your vocals. You can have your jewelry on for your photo shoots in the booth, in the studio, but don't have your jewelry on when you're actually in the booth laying your vocals. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, take you something to drink in the studio when you're recording, because you're going to get dehydrated and you want to make sure you don't wear your vocal cords out. So I recommend water. So take you something to drink. That's tip number 2, take something to drink in the booth when you're in the studio. And tip number 3 is a week or either 2 weeks prior, make sure you rehearse your songs, revise, re-edit, check for breathing spots, and maybe areas where you may need to stress certain words or switch up your delivery at a certain portion of the song. All right, so that's like I said, keep that quick. Number 1, don't wear jewelry. Number 2, take you something to drink in the studio. And number 3, rehearse your lines and rehearse your songs a week or 2 prior to going to the studio. So those are just my top 3 tips for recording in the studio if you want the best sound quality. If you have some tips for better preparing for the studio sessions, leave those tips in the comment section. If you have anything in particular you would like me to cover on this channel, make sure you leave that in the comment section too. Y'all already know, before I leave, I like to leave y'all with a book, something to help you along on your journey. So today's book is How to Record and Mix Great Vocals by Craig Anderton. That's How to Record and Mix Great Vocals by Craig Anderton. So like I said, if you have something particular you want me to share on this channel, just let me know in the comment section. If you feel like this information can help anybody in your circle, make sure you share that with them also. I drop videos twice a week. My name is Tony Bruce. You can connect with me on Instagram and YouTube at Tony Bruce TV. And I'm on Facebook at Tony Bruce Music. So that wraps it up for another episode of Tony Bruce TV. I'm your host, Tony Bruce. Y'all make sure y'all be safe. Remember, make moves, not excuses. And I'm out.
I'm in my vibe now, I'm stuck inside the audio. I'm hearing echoes, let's see where this goes. I'm on that fire, on my way back to the studio. Close up, my eyes low. Too many things on my mind, gotta let go. So I talk to the music and rap code. My friend to the end, my best bro. Gotta vent or I might just explode. In the lab, got my pad and the cognac. Loud pack, blunt raps and a dope track. Now I'm really gone, man, they like, where you at? Lost in the music, I'll be back. So let me roam, turn off the phone, leave me alone. Nobody's home, the kids gone. This weed strong, my vibe is on. I'm in the sky, fly high, no jetpack. Flow by where the stars and the moon at. ET's and this shit like who that? Tony Bruce with the juice, nigga, no cap.